Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service, here today to present the Inauguration chart. Though we are not a political site, this is a great opportunity to learn. So we're looking at something that we already know a lot about. Now, in light of the 6th chart, the January 6th chart, ironically, as an astrologer, and especially one who belongs to a political group of astrologers, we did know that both the 6th and the inauguration charts looked very ominous. As a matter of fact, we should be grateful that the 6th happened, because as an astrologer, I was very, very concerned about an assassination attempt. With regards to what happened on the 6th, it's now highly unlikely due to preparation and knowing the possibility. Now they know the possibility. So in a way, that makes me feel a lot better. So as we start to look at these charts, we're going to make some comparisons to that chart on the 6th because it looks so similar. So we're going to look at that. And we're going to take a look at the asteroids in particular and the trans-Neptunians that really affect that day, that will have statements to make on that day. So that's what we're really going to be looking at. I don't want to make it political, but it is a political situation. One of the things that we're going to look at is markers for politics. So while we're at it, we're going to use the chart as a little bit of an education so that we can learn more about the markers for politicians. Before I get into the charts, I do want to say thank you to my subscribers, whether it be to my newsletter, my website, or most importantly, this YouTube channel. I just love doing this new YouTube channel, by the way. The channel is small, but it has been growing, and I have you to thank for that. So thank you mostly for allowing me into your lives, but also just for helping build this channel. Thank you so much, guys. The likes really help. So keep liking, keep sharing, and I love the comments. So please keep commenting. It's been really wonderful. I'm enjoying myself tremendously, and I have you to thank. So thank you for participating. Even if your participation is only to watch. That's okay. But if you like, that really helps us. So in the interim, let's get moving on these charts and let's see what these charts have to teach us about the inauguration. So we're looking at the Janus program first, and I have left the trans-Neptunians in because otherwise you could see we'd have a couple of blank angles, and I really didn't want to start that way. I want to try to expedite, save time. These things keep getting longer and longer. I keep kind of implementing more, but that's okay. As long as we're learning and it's not overwhelming. That's my objective. So as we look at this chart and we go right to those angles, we're going to look at some really obvious things here. I'm going to go around this chart and spend a lot of time on it because it's the simplest for us to look at, okay? So the first things that I'm going to do, or that we're going to talk about, is we're going to talk about the Uranus, Mars on the ascendant, okay? So they are on the ascendant. Last time we spoke for the 6th, which was supposed to be the surprise attack, and I do believe for most people it was a surprise. It just looks so ugly for those of us who are looking at it from an educational perspective or an astrology perspective. But that's because of the Uranus, Mars squaring Saturn, Sun, and Jupiter, okay? Although in that case, I don't believe it was, I think it was just Jupiter and Saturn, but nonetheless, that's a whole scary thing about a disruption or an uprising. And we'll use that word. So you have an uprising, and Uranus Mars tells you that seems to come out of nowhere, and because it's in the 12th house, we're looking at hidden enemies. So that was disconcerting in and of itself, but that Uranus Mars now falls on the ascendant in aspect to Saturn and Sun this time, although it still squares Jupiter. They still have Jupiter in there. It's a tighter square actually to Jupiter. But when you look at the Sun and Saturn, and then you get Pluto here on the other side, these are all angular. And when you look at angular, they don't have to be in planet to aspect, but angularly they are still aspecting. Okay? Now, in the case of the Aquarius energy, it is most certainly squaring the Taurus energy. So we already know that this day is probably going to be rough. Okay? Now, it doesn't have to be rough in the same way, but there's still power plays going on. There is still going to be some kind of rebellion, though they've been cut off recently from the media. So the computer media, okay? So look, a couple of things here. You've got the Uranus. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, this is computers. Okay, that's Uranus. Not a very good one, but that's Uranus. Poseidon is the media, but it's not like the media you see, like the news media. This is computer. This is getting your news off the computer. And that's what got nailed. They didn't shut down Fox News. They shut down everything related to social media, because social media companies are private and they can set up and establish their own rules. They are allowed to do that. They are not part of the government. That scares some people. I think that it depends on the integrity of whoever owns it. But I do believe that if you're not going to allow people to spread hate or lies, that you need to do that across the board, regardless of who that platform belongs to. And that means any other world leader. I just think that the one who was lying 56,000 times was our president. So he had to get nailed. The idea of Fox News will still be there, okay? And you'll see that later. But Fox News is not really news. And that's a real misconception for a lot of people. They think because they have airtime that they're news, but they're actually, you can look it up, they have to register, and they're registered as opinion and not facts. They don't have to research their stories. They're opinion entertainment. And opinion entertainment gets regulated very differently than, say, even MSNBC, even CNN. They may be news, 24-hour news cycles or whatever, but they have to abide by a different rule, a different law, because they can't put something out there that's a lie. They cannot lie to you, especially not willingly. And if they do, they have to retract it. They get fined. So there's a whole, and that's something we should understand going into this, okay? So the media is coming under fire and will continue over the next 4 years to be under fire. Because what happens in this chart on the 20th is not just talking about that day. It's talking about that birth, that event. We're birthing an event at high noon, that's what they say, on the 20th of January 2021. That chart will remain the natal chart for this presidency for at least 4 years. That means that the media under fire and this Mars-Uranus, I don't know what you want to call it, I know what I want to call it, but I'm trying to keep it, this uproar, if you will, is a factor into the next presidency. And I think that is true. And I'll tell you on an astrology level, it's because we're changing not just energies, as that's normal. We do that all the time. But we're actually changing ages. And ages require frequencies. And I know I'm now talking something that some of you are like, yeah! Others are like, what? We live on a frequency. And when an age change, the frequency has to adjust. That's why there's even physical symptoms for some of the things that have happened since the 21st of December, not long ago. Because it's like we're all adjusting to a new frequency. We're going to see that in the government in a second, okay? I know this is like weird vocabulary or whatever, but the Taurus is like squaring it. It's like we're changing, we're moving on. And then there's this other energy that says, but I'm angry and I'm not getting my way and you got to look at me, okay? That's what that energy is doing. And in the meantime, the media picks up this energy and it's many, it's more than one, okay? Because there's an Apollon on it. Apollon is also on the descendant of this chart. Poseidon, however, is also in the Aries point. So when we're talking about Poseidon, it has a bigger job in this particular chart, okay? So you have this, and also they're looking at computer media because I'm sorry, I don't care if it's on Facebook, I don't care if it's on Twitter. If it's in the media, it should be run under a lot of similar rulings that they have to real factual news. Your news that you watch on TV every day, the real news, they cannot tell you certain things. That's why sometimes I feel like I'm 3 days ahead of myself in the news because I know they're going to wait a few days before some of the stories that come from this area get to this area. They have to make sure they cover their butt. Even if they know they're true, they have to cover their butts. But on the computer, you don't. And that is something that has to be looked at because it brings people to action. Mars, it incites action. Okay, so we got that. And we now know and we now understand the Uranus, Poseidon was, and the Mars, they had to be cut off. For 4 years, they will be making laws and looking at this. Then other things that I wanted to look at. Let me get rid of the board here, the page. The other things I want to look at were, I wasn't real thrilled about this moon. It is the 29th degree. I've mentioned that before in videos. The 29th degree is really important. It's the end. It's the end, okay? And it could be the end of some of the power plays. Yeah, I do believe what occurs over the next 4 years is going to end a lot of that. And because of what we're going to go through in the next year with Pluto, I do believe that'll be over. I'm concerned because it's emotions that are in the 12th, which means they're not being brought out. There's also, you don't know this yet, we'll know it in the next chart. I've done a few of these. The next chart with the Helidago, that is a reaffirmed theme. Remember, I like that in astrology. I look for that message that takes place over and over again. Okay, so our opportunity to know that things are ending is also not in aspect to any of this. Okay, it's actually an aspect to this. Okay. Via a square, okay, but which means there's a struggle, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of pressure on the people, and I think a lot of people are being reserved about what's going on. There are people that are not sharing how they feel, and in some cases they're not sharing their anger, and I think that that's why I'm a little bit concerned, or they're not letting their emotions show their hand. I'm concerned because so many people went along with the Trump lies, and I'm going to call them what they are in here. I'm sorry, it's astrology, I know, but the Trump lies. It's very disconcerting that the white supremacist groups, which I've been really trying to avoid my whole adult life. No, Trump did not create them. They've been around. They've been around a long time. Heather Cox Richardson, or Heather Richardson, Heather Cox, she's a historian. She talks about them. She even mentions that she too has watched them her whole, as she's growing up and into her adult life. Same thing as me, okay? They've been there. He did not create them. He did rile them up. There's the Mars. But he also is using them for a power play, okay? It's sort of like partners in a deal. And so we have this innate anger within us. And so what happens is that it has created a revolution, in a sense, a one that will be squelched. So there's the good news. And if you're a trumpet, it will be squelched. The part that I'm a little bit concerned with, and that's why this is important, it's also going to be important over here, and it is important to this presidency, is that I do believe that for the next several years, he is going to be dealing with politicians who got in under that ticket. So we do have white supremacists now in the government. Now, in the 90s, they warned us that they were in the police and in the military. You know, the FBI has been telling us about this for decades. Again, maybe it's like the pimple thing. We have to have the pimple, the pressure. We've talked about that in the last chart, and how the pressure makes it rise up, and then we are aware that it's there. And that may be what does occur during this presidency, just as it's occurring today. Okay. For some of you young people, I'm not so sure that you were aware of I want to say the long arm reach of the white nationalists. It's many different organizations. It's not just one. But they are about men, white men, ruling things. And though there were a few people that contested, you know, the black man who contested, really, has he done his homework? Okay? Because that was really foolish on his part. The women that contested, really? Okay? So, again, now they're pulling in people from all over. But again, like a pimple, they may have layered themselves up with other groups. That's how they got a little bit of a mix. But the reality is that all will transpire and come out, and it'll all be known. So Poseidon in the Aries point is speaking to us. Poseidon on the descendant is also speaking to us. And perhaps it's telling us two different things. Perhaps it's telling us two things that are very similar. But Poseidon is propaganda as much as it's the media. It is educational as much as it is gaslighting. And it is up to us to know the difference. In astrology, many things work that way. You've got, let's look at this. Hades Chronos. Look at that, 9 and 12. Both are retrograde right now, but look at the close proximity. You know, these two are going to hit finally, I think it's 2030. But do you understand that though that means bad leaders, okay, and we are going to see that. We're going to see bad bosses, bad leaders, dishonest, people that have stuff in their past. You know, there's a lot involved in this. Sometimes when people get a lot of power, they become deviant in other ways, or they are deviants. That's Hades, okay? So you're talking about authority figures that might have some deviant qualities about them, all right? And I'm not talking like, you know, some people think that, well, if you're in the Republican Party, I guess it's deviant to be gay, although that's sort of stupid and ridiculous, because I don't think that should have a factor. But deviant would be a pedophile, okay? That's a deviant. So, you know, again, that has a bad connotation. However, that is also medical research. And in the next 10 years, we're going to get a lot of medical breakthroughs. Stuff that'll blow your mind, which is incredible. We need this. This is wonderful. It's our time, right? Just like it's our time to understand about leadership and what denotes a leader. Okay, because this is a lesson for all the people that are living here. Okay? So, that's one way that astrology works. So I'm going to show you how it's working today. Okay? This moment. So we have a Hades Chronos. I think we have a bad leader. I think he's terrible. Okay? Now, I know not everyone shares my opinion, and we're all allowed to have our own opinions. It's just that I keep thinking how they impeached a president for lying, and yet this one got away with it 56,000 times, and nobody wants to impeach him. What? It's the age we live in. Things are changing, and they are changing, okay? So I'm going to talk about that in a second. But let's look at this. You have Neptune, and Neptune is in a striking square to the two nodes, okay, to the nodes, period, all right? It is literally minutes away. Yeah, I'm just making sure I'm right. Yes, it is. It's literally minutes. So you have Neptune in the 11th, which is groups and associations, and then you have the nodes. And so you have to ask yourself, and the nodes are falling in financial houses. This chart, we can take those houses because this is an event that is occurring at this place at this time. It is occurring in Washington. Okay? So these nodes here are really important because they are sort of indicating that there could be a financial, and I think we'll find out, there could be a financial thing with these groups to do Neptune, to pull the wool over our eyes, to steal the election from us. Okay? They're using those groups, but this is a whole other thing, all right? So financially, where's the money? Because it takes money to do all this, guys. And there has to be money. So and then the other side of that is, let's look at the fact that this is Biden's chart, and he is giving money from the government, which is depleted, and you'll find out how depleted during this next 4 years, because I believe it's been sucked dry by the last administration. I don't know how dry, but let's just say that they inhaled a big whiff of money, and that will be knowledgeable. And, but what has that done to the individual? Now, that is going to come out. That is part of what's going on. And it is about how certain entities have come together under this guise, this Neptune guise. And that is true, because if you listen to the news media and the FBI reports, it is not just Proud Boys, it's Boogaloo Boys, it's Proud Boys, it's the neo-Nazis, it's the, it's terrible that there are so many. God, there are so many that this is where, this guise, this has all brought them together. That's the bad way of looking at Neptune, the nodes. The other way would be that you have to be careful wearing a mask and being around people because you don't know who has a disease or not. We've talked about that. But in Biden's chart, it's actually good because it is showing that he is concerned about the people, and that his goal, because that's the 11th house and that's a goal, is to ease from the disease the financial picture of the individual. So I wanted to show that, because not everything in astrology is bad. It's just, I know I am more of a humanistic astrologer. I know that by some of the posts and comments. Yeah, we tend to be more positive because we know that all energy, I can't make Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, I can't make them better, but I can tell you that they're leading to healing, that I can tell you that the upsurge that we're dealing with, the up is going to help heal us, because it is like the pimple, like I said in the last chart, and it is like a pressure. It's also going to bring out the nodes. It's going to bring out the dark underbelly of our country. The racist people, the misogynist, racist people, that if you don't fit into their criteria, then you have no rights. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen, and I'll tell you another reason why. Okay, so Biden is not doing that. He's not continuing. He doesn't want to deal with them. He doesn't even want to deal with them in a way that he's going to have to deal with them, which is justice. Okay? But he has to. There's your Neptune nodes. But it also means that for the whole time he's in office, we've got this ominous 12th house too, and that is scary because that's hidden enemies. And that means that as he goes into office and he tries to do good things for the country, that there could be people in there trying to trip him up. And this is where I go with, now we have white supremacists infiltrated into our government. That's sad. And I come from a state where, you know, in Pennsylvania, I'm actually humiliated with what I saw in Congress from the government, particularly the Republicans from Pennsylvania. So it's very upsetting to me to watch. I don't know how I feel about them and the 14th Amendment, and this is not a political site, so I'm not going to get into it. But I can tell you that that does kind of show up right here. And so that this is not like everybody going in and being happy, and let's all joy, and work together. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. So he's aware of it. We're aware of it thanks to the 6th. The doors are open, the glass is clear, and we can see things. And I did tell you that was going to happen with Poseidon sitting at the Aries point. And Poseidon is going to be here for some time. That is going to stay there at that 14 degrees, okay? So that Poseidon isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And I do believe that, as I said, there will be laws regarding media, but it also means that because the media falls in the Aries point, that you and I will probably be pretty much in the loop of what is going on. And it is going to be sharing a lot of the power play. So let's look at the power play, okay? So you've got Sun right off the midheaven, which, by the way, is by design. The leaders of our country, the people who wrote the Constitution, were astrologers, all of them, studied astrology. I wish we did. Okay, I wish our present government did. They wouldn't be such knuckleheads if they understood better. I am an advocate of astrology should be taught in high school. So I may not see it in my lifetime, but I'm going to put it out on videos and anything else I can. We need to teach this stuff in high school. So as a math course, really, I think it'd be so good for the kids too. It would help them to have more confidence in themselves. But you're looking at a Pluto, which is 24 degrees, right sitting on that midheaven. Didn't it do that in the last chart too? And it's telling us that there are power struggles going on, especially politically, that they're using politics as their political struggle because that 24 degrees is on and coming from the 9th house. Because it's Pluto, it's not going to move that quickly into the 10th. It's not going to cross this point too soon. However, it will be crossing that point when we have a Pluto. See if I can do this. Return, which happens at 27 degrees. Okay, so it'd be really interesting to see what this does when that point happens, because this chart would show that's the beginning then of healing. We got a long road in healing though, because our country has let a lot slide that they probably shouldn't have. And you have to understand, our country's only been in existence through the material age, the 200 years of Earth. And one of the astrologers said on a group, I can't remember if it was Martin, but somebody from our group made a comment in a group that I belong to, that it's only at the end of the age that you realize where things don't work. And one of the things about the material age is how much it bred greed and corruption. And you'll really learn that over the next year and a half, okay? Because Pluto is going to point it out. It's going to continually cross and go back, pull up that, bring it back. And that we are going to be aware, okay? We have, and I'll get to the next part in the end about letting so much go in this country even after the Civil War. So I'll get back to that. But we are changing energy. We're going into an air energy. Air is very, very different than Earth. And I've talked about this before. I've talked about it with a December chart. It's very different. It's much more creative. It's much more equitable. It's much more accepting and, you know, universal and humanitarian and all those wonderful things. It is revolutionary. So there is some pitfalls. But as we are in this inauguration chart, we are looking at really taking the reins of that Aquarian energy and bringing it into our government. That means making a more equitable government, a government that looks like America. That's literal. That is so darned literal that I don't understand how anybody could disapprove of what Biden's been doing. Because what he is doing is this is who we are. What Trump had in there, that's not who we are. We're not a bunch of white men wearing suits. We're billionaires. No. We're a bunch of people of different colors and different backgrounds with different messages and different purposes that can come together for the greater good for all people. So there's my Aquarian speech for the day. Anyway, the Jupiter also is an indication of healing. Now, just kind of looking at this, the sun and Saturn are on this midheaven. So the Jupiter being there means that Joe Biden will be successful, but it's not going in there with the free spirit of the Jupiter energy. No. It stops at the task maker of Saturn energy. Okay, so Saturn is the driving force, and it does indicate an administration that is going to work very, very hard. And they're going to work very, very hard to understand the changes and implement the changes of this country, and that will not be easy. We're a country that's only existed in one age. We were so in our infancy when it was set up at the very end of what would have been, I guess, a water. I'm trying to think if it was a water or a fire. I'm not sure. It might have been a fire, actually. And then it was Earth. And there was Earth for 200 years because ages don't change that quickly. Okay. I know it was cardinal energy. Even when the country was set up, it was in cardinal energy. That's what makes me think that it was fire. So we are now in air, and air is so different. Air looks at everything so differently. And one of the big factors is lies. I think that one of the things, and it is going to be a factor in the press with Poseidon and Uranus, is this idea of lying. Aquarians do not do well with lies. Ask my daughter. I am an Aquarius, and I will cut you off if I find out you lied. So it's better to man up than it is to lie when it comes to dealing with Aquarian energies. You might as well man up, because a lie will be seen as worse. So just to let you know, the days of the Earth, I got money I can get out of, those days are starting to dwindle and go away. I know it won't happen immediately. And this country still is going through the Pluto return, which we've already talked about. That's before us. But know that that's what's coming, and that's where we're headed. And that's why things like astrology and tarot have not only gotten bigger in terms of people now going and seeing them and using them more, but they're tools for empowerment. And one of the things that we're trying to do with the Aquarian age is empower. And the interesting thing about this chart is Pluto with the sun is about empowering the individual against the corporation. Okay? Doesn't mean that some corporations won't thrive, and I mean, you're never shutting Amazon down, I'm sure. But I think what it does mean is that the government is going to start looking at how the people are treated. So that company can't get away with paying you very little money and then making you work 80 hours without any regulation. So I think the government's stepping in on that. And that's that. I think that's going to bring a lot of rebellion. And remember, I talked about the behind, okay? So the people that work at certain levels. Big money, big corporations have exceeded their expectations in the age of Earth. But in the age of air, they are going to be brought more down to earth. Literally, okay? And that having a whole lot of money won't have the same clout, if you will. It's always nice to have money, but I think having money there's going to be more of an understanding that it's not your money, you're just a steward of that money. I think those days are coming. So I wanted to do all that, and I wanted to do that on this chart. I'm just briefly looking to make sure that I covered everything. You know, this Cupido is right on the cusp of the 8th going to the 9th. And you think about the Cupido as organizations, and the 8th house is like the issues of organizations, it's the money of organizations, but stick with this concept of issues. Internal, deep. It is showing us that there is, and I do believe it's the Republican Party, it does have issues. And it's right on that cusp, which means it affects their politics, or it is about what's in their closet that they're using politics for. So that's a whole other thing. I do believe we'll learn more about that. It's very complicated. Again, our country is complicated. The way it was set up was complicated. The things that have happened since have been very, very complicated. So as I move to let's do the chart first. Again, I've done a couple of these. So as I move into this chart, and I talked about the government changing, I want to talk about how our government has made a lot of mistakes. We've only existed in the Earth age, and money has always spoken in our government, which has not been always the best for its people. And some of the things that are happening because we're now seeing that, okay, that there's a lot of corruption and deviance. You're going to get to that, the deviance of the other side, okay? And what I mean by that is the people that have a lot of money. Not all people. There are some wonderful people who want to give their fair share, but there's also a whole element of what I like to call the darkness. And the darkness is a whole other ball game. They, instead of putting their money into making things better for us in society, they might throw their money into politics to make sure that decisions get made for them down the future. That's just one way of putting it. Now, the thing that I wanted to show here is not only, okay, there's a couple of things. There's a lot of asteroids here that are going to recount and recap what I have just said. Oops. Oh dear, hold on. Sorry about that. So there's a whole lot going on here. Should have got this, but I didn't finish. So what's going on here is, first of all, this president has a lot of decisions to make. This is a turning point. I'm going to talk about that again. There are a lot of decisions that are being made by this president and these structures that he's putting in place. They're working very hard, and one thing they're working very, very hard at is decisions. A lot of decisions will be made in the next 4 years. This is a government that's coming in running. They're not only are their boots on the ground, but they're already working, okay? It shows here that one of the things they're making decisions about is justice. Now, does it mean that there's stuff that's going to be going on with the courts? Oh yeah, I know that's going to happen too. But on the day, the 20th, there is a lot of talk about justice of a leaving official, a leaving president, Saturn's son. And during this time, this presidency, and he has stated it, no matter what, they will make sure he has justice. So this is a point I wanted to make, but I always want to be in the right place to make these points. Our government, when it came back together after the Civil War, did not really do things well enough. They were too nice. They let those guys back in, and then they let them squelch those people through other laws. Oh, you're not going to let us have slaves? Well, then we have Jim Crow laws, but we're not letting these people have anything. Okay? When the New Deal came out, it got worse for them, the other. We're going to call them the other because that's actually literally how it's put, okay? And so they're like, now there's more going on. Like, you're not getting the same benefits that us. You're not allowed these things, okay? And nobody tells them no. Nobody says the Klan should be executed. No, because the Klan, those people had money. Okay. Next thing that happens, we have, I'm trying to think, I'm not hitting everything, but we have Nixon. They let him go. They pardon him. So what happens? Now we have Trump. You can't keep letting these people get away with this, or we will never solve a 400-year-old problem. But Aquarius will fix it, because Aquarius is the energy of equality, and equity is everything in this energy. So I know this will be a resolved issue. I know that at least he will have justice. I do believe through the 4 years we will see justice for those other liars, because they were lying, those other representatives. So they'll find their justice also through the next 4 years. I do believe they will. I am concerned. They've infiltrated our government, but I just don't think they're going to be there for long. And the reason for that is not because our government is so good at getting rid of them, but because the age has changed. The way people think has changed. And they're not going to let them get away with it. It's awesome. Awesome. Okay? So I did want to talk about that. Other things I want to talk about. Remember, I'm afraid of the 12th house, okay? Because it's hidden enemies, and look how full it is. It intercepted the whole sign of Aries. And it's going to take the whole sign of Libra, which is ruled by Venus up here, to bring us back. Okay? Yes. Kindness. Listening to the other guy, whoever he is, even if it's a trumpet head. Okay, I'm sorry I use that term. Again, I don't want to be political, but obviously y'all know I'm not a pro-Trump person. Okay, so as we go on, okay, and we look at this, we see things. This Venus, okay, is also in a sextile to the press. Okay, which is an opportunity. And I saw something else I wanted to point out. It is, well, it's a big square to this destruction. We'll get to that in a minute, because I'm going to show you that from somewhere else right here. Same, Shiva, okay? They are asteroids of withdrawal, but they're also about destruction. And it's interesting, I told a girl one year, you're going to be withdrawing from your job for a while. And she said, well, that's funny. The only vacation I planned is when they're doing a reconstruction of her store. And I was like, well, that's the real deal right there. This is a reconstruction. So any destruction we see only makes us more aware of what we have to reinforce for reconstruction. And I mean that on an ideology level as much as a construction physical level. Okay, remember, we're in a new age now. So we're not just thinking about redoing that building. We're thinking about redoing ideology. That's why them getting knocked off social media platforms. I really think Fox News needs to also own up to what they're signed up as and own it, so that, you know, that we are more in a line with understanding our press, okay, and how destructive the press can be, really destructive. And that's another thing that concerns me over here, and that's what I was going to be getting to, so it leads me right in. What is it that's not, here it is, here we go again, but it's not being spoken about. Now, here we go again, it's not in there. However, not being spoken about is. And it's destruction. It is withdrawing, but it's also about restructuring and destruction. Okay, so that's why I don't feel like we're done with the explosions and the bombings and that's why people need to be vigilant and they need to be safe. Okay, and don't go to government buildings and don't join in these crowds. People will die. Okay, even if you are a Trump supporter, stay away. You'll die. What can I tell you? Anyway, so these asteroids now take on some criteria and meaning into what's going on. There's also a turning point in how we take care of ourselves, and in this case, how the country is taken care of. And we saw that with Neptune, and he's more concerned about the person's financial. He's not giving millions and billions of dollars to industries. He's giving it to the people. Okay? That's really important in this new age, new government. Okay? So as we move into our dial, so let me get out of here. Let me go to the dial. Let's look at the Aries points. And I want to look, remember I said about turning points. I want to start there. Even though again, you can tell I was doing other videos and then didn't like them, or they didn't work right or something. Okay, so here we are at the Aries point, and a couple of things I want to point out. Remember last time I showed you the asteroid of Persephone, a man is going out on his own, or a person, something is, you're on your own. Well, that asteroid still plays a role here. It's still very much in the Aries point. As a matter of fact, let's go back and look at it in the chart. I should have actually done that. I've done this so many times, you forget what you've done. The idea is, here it is. Okay, so, nope, that's not the one. See, there's two of them. So that's one, and that's with, this guy comes in with Volcanus. So this is Persephone, and Persephone is coming in with Volcanus. So someone's got a pressure to go on their own. People are getting pressured to go on their own. Media has been told, go on your own. Platforms have been told, go on your own. Okay, so that really fits, okay? But the asteroid that shows up, if I can find it, here it is this one right here in Pisces, at the very, very end of Pisces, is Proserpina, which means the same thing. So you're out on your own, a man on his own. And, you know, sure, it's an inauguration chart. We're looking at, you know, what this president's doing and all of that. But it's also about how somebody out on their own is a surprise. Biden could surprise us with something, and I'm not saying he wouldn't. But who is now out on their own? And what could he possibly do to surprise us? I'm not even going to ask, because it could be terrible. That I do want to point out. And also, I want to point out this, nodes to Kronos. We have one going in and one going out. But they're both very important on this day, which means that Trump has to do something to be in the news, because God knows he can't be left behind. That's how much I think of him. So as we move on, okay, again, over here at this Aries point, you do have just rewards, okay? I know there is justice coming. So those surprises, that person going out on their own, again, I trust the universe. I trust the powers that be, okay? And I'm not referring to the ones in government. I'm talking about the real ones. Now, here's something that, let me get my pen back. One of the beauties of working with a dial is understanding that you don't have to use as much math. And we have a turning point. Remember I picked up this Chiron and I said there's a turning point in how we take care of ourselves. Look where it falls on the dial. Now, if you count this out, it forms a midpoint to this point. And these two asteroids become very important. And that is another political asteroid. So remember, I talked about, we're going to look at markers in here. Politics is all over this chart. Here's politics, because it's how we serve. It's politics. But it's also the politics of how we serve. Hebe, politics. How we serve in politics. Look at this. Politics. It's a very political chart. Okay, and it'll be a very political day. You'll hear nothing but politics all day on television and onto the social medias. And I think you'll also see that that's where the other, in this case, the trumpets, might find another gathering place. Because I don't think they're going away. I think the 27th, which is our Pluto return, is going to be a huge marker. The 27 degrees of I'm sorry, 27 degrees of Pluto. I don't want to say the 27th. I don't know anything about the 27th. I do know that I worry about the 17th. I worry about the 20th. I think that the president is going to try to pull the rug out from under us. That's all he's good at, truly. He's certainly not a good leader, at least in my opinion. And to all those people who think that, well, he didn't start a war. Yes, he did. He started one right in this country. So I guess Mick Mulvaney made that comment over the weekend. I mean, come on, people. He's lousy. And until we can wake up and say that, I don't understand, again, we're all entitled to our opinion. I don't wish ill on him. I don't. But I don't see how somebody with that chart could be good. He just doesn't have some of what I call the qualities that are necessary to being a good, compassionate, empathetic leader. Okay? So that's just me. Just for the end, just to finish this up, coming to the 30 point. And again, there's not a whole lot more to add. Most of the excitement this time is in that straight up axis, but our midheaven at 26 degrees is not far away from the 2230, though it isn't considered a midpoint. It isn't considered, okay? That is a decision point, so I'm not going to talk about that. But that's confusion. There still will be confusions, okay? So check your, and there it is, Zeus, what I was looking for. I believe we have a chance for some real healing because of the moon and Venus. And that means that the people are better financially, and that is a good thing. And that's what people will be excited about, and that's what the press will talk about. And that's what they'll talk about the whole time he's in office. And this gives him strength, all of it. So honestly, it does bode well for the whole presidency. Let me come back in. So I don't want anyone to worry. I think that if something does happen on that day, they are prepared. I feel that many Republicans are beginning to get his number, and they are separating themselves because, believe it or not, I mean, there's some decent people that are Republican. Mitt Romney, I don't agree with his politics, but he's a good guy, Lisa Murkowski, I don't agree with her politics, but I don't dislike them as people, okay? I don't wish ill on anybody, but I don't have anything bad to say about them. If I don't agree with their policies, I just don't agree. But I think that if you start to ask me about the behavior of Hawley or Cruz, now I'm going to tell you that I have some issues. And I have issues because I really am an Aquarius. And I really do not like lying. And I really hate it when you do it in that capacity. And Matt Gaetz getting up there and doing what he did. These people will have justice. That justice that you saw on the chart, that's for all the politicians. As you can see, all the politicians came up in the Aries point of that chart. So even if they don't get it in the first year, I don't believe they will make re-election. And again, it's because everything's changed. And if you think that people are going to forget like they always do, I don't think so, because what helps people forget is money. And I do not believe that money is going to be what motivates people as much in the years to come. I really do believe that, because as an Aquarius, I can tell you that's been a problem my whole life. I'm not motivated by money. And that has been, for some people, a real issue. And I know other Aquarians, and some who make tons and tons of money. And though they'll say initially, yeah, they are motivated. No, they're not. That whole money factor, that has something else to do with other things they're working on in this lifetime. But it's not their real true motivation, okay? Their motivation might have more to do with respect and honor and position and even maybe power. But I don't think it's always money. And that's just me. So in any event, I do hope that was helpful. I hope that you learned a lot about these asteroids. I hope that you got Persephone and Proserpina, that you understood Tisphany, that you understand Volcanus and Kronos and Hades, that you understand Poseidon, that you're aware of what these things mean, and that it could help you as you go on and study your own astrology and look at your own charts and see what you come up with and see what you see. It's really a wonderful lesson. But I also want to leave you with something else. I listen to a lot of other, not so many astrologers. Those I actually talk with in group. I belong to a political group, and I used to belong to a medical group. I haven't heard from them much. But I do belong to other astrology groups, and there are other astrologers, and they talk, and they say things, and it triggers things. And this morning I was listening to Marianne from Revealing Light. She is a tarot reader that I do recommend. She's wonderful. She's an awesome reader. And she's a political reader, but I am a very political person, in spite of what you may know about from this site. And she had on her site today a poem that I'd seen before, but wow, it's so powerful. And I think that in these times, and as we go ahead with the days ahead, and with the fear mongers, and in our dealings with the fear mongers, I want you to remember this. It's a poem by Consuela Newton. And she's no longer with us, but the poem is just so prophetic. And for us right now, I think, like, spot on. The light. I am the light. The light is within me. The light moves throughout me. The light surrounds me. The light protects me. I am the light. Please remember that, guys, because as light workers, we are all lights. And the reason why we do things like tarot and astrology is to help put that light bulb on and to shine that light out into the world in all dark corners to get rid of the darkness. And with that said, until we meet again, happy reading.